I can't feel my legs." The room froze. Nurses rushed in, monitors beeped, and a billionaire named Ethan Cross lay pale and motionless in a hospital bed. His private jet had made an emergency landing after a sudden crash. Now, the man who owned half the city couldn't move from the waist down. But there was one thing no one in that room knew. Ethan wasn't really paralyzed. The entire accident, the fainted pilot, the emergency call, the wheelchair waiting at the hospital, had been part of his plan. A cruel, clever test. He wanted to know one thing. Would Sophia, the woman he claimed to love, still love him if he lost everything? Just 2 weeks earlier, Ethan Cross was on top of the world. At 38, he was one of the youngest billionaires in the country. Owner of Crosstech Industries, a company known for its luxury smart devices and ruthless competition. He had a private island, a mansion on every continent, and a girlfriend who looked like she'd stepped out of a dream. Sophia Miles, 26, kind, graceful, and beautiful. She'd met him at a charity gala, where she'd spilled champagne on his white suit and apologized like her life depended on it. He'd laughed. She'd blushed. And in that moment, he swore she was different. Not like the others who chased his money. For months, she'd been perfect. Too perfect. Always supportive, always gentle, never asking for anything. And that's what scared him most. "People love me for what I can give them," he told his friend and personal doctor, Dr. Harris, one night. "But what if the one person I trust is just pretending?" Dr. Harris frowned. "Ethan, you're not God. You can't test people's love like a science experiment." Ethan smirked. "Watch me." Now, in the hospital room, Sophia sat beside his bed, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Oh my God, Ethan! They said your spine." He reached for her hand weakly, acting the part. "The doctors say it's permanent," he whispered. "I'll never walk again." Sophia covered her mouth, sobbing. No, that can't be true." He turned his head away, pretending to be broken. "You should go. You didn't sign up for this." Her eyes flashed with pain. "Don't say that. I love you." He studied her carefully, looking for cracks. Pity, hesitation, disgust. But she only tightened her grip. "Ethan," she said, trembling, "I don't care if you can't walk. I care that you're alive." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He had rehearsed this scene in his mind 100 times, but he hadn't planned for her to sound so real. He forced a weak smile. "You're sure about that?" She nodded through her tears. "I'll take care of you, I promise." He looked at her, searching for lies, but all he saw was love, or at least something that looked like it. When she left the room to call his family, Dr. Harris stepped in. "This is going too far, Ethan," he said quietly. "She's grieving something that isn't real." Ethan stared out the window, his voice cold. "If her love is real, this won't break her." "And if it's not?" the doctor asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then I'd rather find out now than after I marry her." Dr. Harris shook his head. "You're playing with fire, my friend." Ethan smirked faintly. "That's the only way to see who survives the burn." But as he watched Sophia return, holding a blanket and kissing his forehead gently, a strange feeling twisted inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Guilt. And for the first time, the billionaire who controlled everything wondered if this test would cost him more than he expected. 3 weeks later, the mansion didn't feel like a home anymore. Ethan sat in his wheelchair, watching Sophia push open the curtains every morning. She smiled as if the sunlight could erase his pain. "Good morning," she'd say, her voice soft. "How's my favorite patient today?" He'd force a grin. "Still can't feel my legs, so I guess the same as yesterday." She would laugh lightly, trying to keep things normal. But he saw the dark circles under her eyes, the way her smile sometimes broke when she thought he wasn't looking. Sophia had quit her job to care for him full-time. She cooked, cleaned, and helped him dress. She refused to hire nurses, saying, You're not a patient to me, Ethan. You're my person." Every time she said that, his chest ached, because the truth was, she was caring for a lie. One night, while she was asleep on the couch, Ethan rolled into his study. He opened his laptop and began typing notes for his experiment. Observation 1. Sophia stays even under pressure. Observation 2. Genuine emotional response. Observation 3. No sign of greed. He stared at the words. For the first time, he wasn't sure if he was writing proof of her loyalty or evidence of his own cruelty. Suddenly, he heard her voice behind him. "You're awake?" He jumped, closing the laptop quickly. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." She rubbed her eyes, walking closer. "You should rest. Doctor said no strain." He looked at her. Messy hair, tired face, still beautiful. "Why do you do this?" he asked quietly. "Do what?" "Stay." She blinked. "Because I love you, Ethan. You'd do the same for me." He smiled faintly. "Would I?" Sophia frowned. "Of course you would." He didn't answer. Inside, he knew he might not have. Days turned into weeks. Ethan's patience thinned. He wanted to reveal the truth, to end the charade, but something stopped him. Fear. What if she walked away after knowing the truth? And worse, what if she stayed out of pity? He began testing her in smaller, meaner ways. When she offered to feed him, he'd snap, "I'm not helpless." When she tried to clean his wheelchair, he'd roll away in anger. She'd cry quietly, but never raised her voice. One evening, she whispered, "You're not angry at me, Ethan. You're angry at what you think you lost." He looked at her sharply. "And what do you think that is?" She smiled sadly. "Control." Her words cut deep. Too deep. One morning, Ethan woke to find Sophia gone. Panic shot through him. He called out her name. No answer. His phone was dead, and for the first time since the accident, he felt truly alone. After 2 hours, she walked in carrying grocery bags and a folded newspaper. "Where were you?" he barked. "Getting breakfast," she said gently. "And something else." She laid the newspaper in his lap. The headline read, "Billionaire Ethan Cross donates $10 million to hospital for spinal injury research." His face went blank. "I didn't approve that." Sophia smiled faintly. "I know, I did." He stared at her. "You what?" "I used your foundation's charity fund. I thought, maybe your story could help others. Isn't that what good people do?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "You don't make decisions with my money." Sophia looked hurt. "It's not about the money, Ethan. It's about meaning." He turned away, voice cold. "You don't understand business." "No," she said softly, eyes glistening. "I understand love. But maybe you never did." She walked out before he could respond. For the first time since his fake paralysis began, Ethan felt something real. Fear. Not of losing control, but of losing her. He gripped the wheels of his chair tightly, whispering to himself, "What if I already have?" The mansion was quiet that night. Too quiet. Ethan sat in his wheelchair near the window, staring at the city lights that once felt like his kingdom. Now, every reflection looked like a lie staring back at him. Sophia hadn't spoken much since their argument. She still cooked his meals and checked his medication, but her laughter was gone. Every word between them was shorter, sharper, colder, and Ethan couldn't tell if he had broken her heart, or if she had started to see through his game. The next morning, she came into his room dressed for a meeting. Formal, elegant, confident. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Downtown," she said simply. "I have something to take care of." He frowned. "You didn't ask my permission." She stopped and turned, her voice calm but strong. "You don't own me, Ethan. I may love you, but I'm not your employee." That sentence hit him harder than any insult ever could. After she left, he sat there in silence, realizing how strange it was. He'd spent his whole life surrounded by people who obeyed him, yet the only person who made him feel alive was the one who refused to. Hours later, Ethan asked his driver to follow Sophia's car. He told himself it was curiosity, but deep down, it was insecurity. The black SUV trailed her through the busy streets until she stopped at a small downtown clinic. Ethan watched from the window as she went inside carrying a folder. A clinic? Confusion stirred in his mind. He asked the driver to wait, then sent a message to Dr. Harris. "Check what this place is. Riverside Medical Center. Sophia's there now." Minutes later, his phone buzzed. "Ethan, that's a rehab clinic for spinal injury patients. She volunteers there every week." Ethan froze. He looked at the building again, the same one with faded paint and a broken sign, and saw Sophia through the glass doors, smiling as she helped a man adjust his wheelchair. Her kindness wasn't a performance. She was doing for others exactly what she was doing for him. And for the first time since this all began, Ethan felt truly ashamed. When she returned home that evening, he was waiting for her in the living room. "How was your day?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, surprised by his gentle tone. "Good, busy." He looked down. "I know where you were." Her face went pale. "You followed me?" He sighed. "I had to know." Tears filled her eyes. Not from guilt, but disappointment. "You really don't trust anyone, do you?" He looked away. "It's hard to trust when everyone has a price." Sophia's voice broke. "Maybe that's why you'll always be poor. Ethan, you measure everything in money, even love." Her words cut deep. He stared at her, speechless, while she walked past him toward the stairs. At the last step, she turned and said softly, "Do you know why I go to that clinic?" He shook his head. "Because my father was paralyzed when I was 10. I took care of him until he died. So when I met you and I thought you'd lost your legs, I promised myself I wouldn't lose another person I loved to hopelessness." Her voice trembled, eyes shining with pain. "I stayed because I couldn't walk away from someone who reminded me of him." Ethan's throat closed. "Sophia?" She held up a hand. "Don't. I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I just want you to understand that what you're doing to me, to us, feels cruel, even if you don't mean it." And before he could find a word to say, she disappeared into her room, leaving him alone with the sound of his own guilt. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, whispering to himself, "She loved me for the one thing I pretended to be." He pressed his hands against his useless legs, the legs that weren't really broken, and realized the truth he'd been avoiding all along. He wasn't testing her anymore. He was testing himself. The morning sun broke through the curtains, but the mansion felt cold, colder than ever. Sophia moved around quietly, avoiding Ethan's eyes. She had stopped calling him love. Now it was just Ethan, and every time she said his name it sounded like goodbye. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. His guilt had become a storm in his chest. He told himself he would end the lie that day, confess everything, beg for forgiveness, and hope she would understand. But fate got there first. It started when Dr. Harris arrived unexpectedly, holding a small folder. He spoke low, urgent. "Ethan, we need to talk. Alone." Sophia looked up from the hallway. "No secrets, please." "Not anymore." Ethan's jaw tightened. "It's fine, Harris." "Say it," the doctor sighed, then pulled out a medical form, the one he had faked weeks ago to make Ethan's paralysis look real. "You told me you destroyed these," Ethan whispered. "I thought I did," Harris replied, "but the hospital ran a system audit. They found a copy in the records." Sophia frowned. "What are you two talking about?" Harris looked between them. "Ms. Miles, Ethan isn't paralyzed." The words hit like a thunderclap. Sophia blinked. "What?" Ethan's heart pounded. "Sophia, wait!" But she stepped back, shaking her head. "You can walk?" He reached toward her. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Answer me!" she cried. Can you walk? Ethan hesitated, then stood up. The air went dead silent. Sophia's hands trembled as she stared at him, tears spilling down her cheeks. You lied to me. For weeks. Every moment, every tear I cried. All of it was fake to you? No, he said desperately. I needed to know if you really loved me. Her face broke into something between pain and disgust. Loved you? You think love is a game? A test? He stepped closer. I didn't trust anyone, Sophia. Everyone around me has an agenda. And you think that gives you the right to destroy the one person who didn't? She snapped. Her voice cracked, trembling with rage and heartbreak. I quit my job for you. I cared for you. I cried myself to sleep thinking you'd never walk again. And the whole time, you were laughing inside. Ethan's eyes filled. I wasn't laughing. I was scared. I didn't know how to trust. Then you should have trusted love, she whispered. The room went silent. Only the sound of her tears hitting the floor filled the space between them. Sophia turned to Dr. Harris. How long did you know? He sighed. From the start. I warned him it would end badly. She nodded slowly. You were right, she turned back to Ethan. You wanted to test me? Fine, you failed. Not me, she walked to the door, pausing only once. You don't test real love, Ethan. You protect it. And then she was gone. Ethan sank to the floor, his legs trembling. Not from pain, but from the weight of what he'd done. Dr. Harris put a hand on his shoulder. You wanted truth. Now you have it, Ethan's voice cracked. And I lost the only person who ever told it to me. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had built an empire and destroyed a heart, and whispered, What good is power if it can't make someone stay? That night, for the first time in his life, Ethan Cross sat in his mansion alone, not as a billionaire, not as a genius, but as a man who finally realized that love doesn't need proof, it just needs honesty. And he had none left to give. The mansion felt emptier than it ever had before. It had been 2 months since Sophia walked out, and not a single message, call, or letter came from her. Her silence was louder than any anger she could have shouted. Every morning, Ethan still caught himself turning toward the door, waiting to hear her soft voice say, Good morning. But all he heard was the echo of loneliness bouncing off marble floors. He stopped attending meetings. He stopped shaving. He stopped pretending. The world, however, didn't stop for him. One morning, Dr. Harris walked into his study holding a stack of papers. Ethan, you need to see this. Ethan looked up, his eyes hollow. If it's about my company, throw it away. Harris hesitated. You're losing it, Ethan. The board is pulling out. The stock dropped 40% this week. The press found out about the fake paralysis. They're calling it the billionaire who lied for love. Ethan gave a bitter laugh. That's fair. I did. This isn't just your reputation, Harris warned. It's your legacy. Everything you built, Ethan cut him off. Everything I built was rotten, Harris. Maybe it deserves to fall, the doctor sighed. And what about Sophia? Ethan's face softened. She was the only thing that wasn't. That night, Ethan opened his laptop and searched for her name. The last trace of Sophia Miles was a charity fundraiser article. Local volunteer helps rebuild free clinic for disabled patients. He stared at the photo. Sophia, in a simple white dress, smiling, surrounded by people in wheelchairs. Her hands were covered in paint. Her face glowed with the peace he'd never been able to give her. He whispered, You moved on. But then he noticed the clinic's name. The Cross Rehabilitation Center. His name. His throat tightened. She hadn't erased him from her life. She'd turned his name into something good. The next morning, Ethan drove to the address quietly, without his usual entourage or car tinted like a fortress. The clinic sat in a poor neighborhood, its walls painted bright yellow, full of laughter and life. He parked down the street and walked through the gate slowly, watching volunteers help patients move between therapy rooms, and there she was. Sophia. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, her clothes simple but graceful. She was kneeling beside a little girl in a wheelchair, teaching her how to hold a paintbrush. "See?" Sophia said gently. "Your hands still work. You just have to trust them." Ethan froze. He wanted to run to her, to tell her everything, but his guilt held him still. The little girl noticed him first. "Miss Sophia, there's a man watching you." Sophia turned, and their eyes met. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. She stood slowly, walking toward him. "What are you doing here, Ethan?" He swallowed. "I had to see you." She crossed her arms. "To apologize again?" "No," he said softly. "To tell you that you were right." She blinked, surprised. "Right about what?" "That love isn't something you test. It's something you trust. And I destroyed mine because I was too afraid to believe in it." Sophia looked away. "Ethan, it's too late." He nodded. "Maybe, but I had to tell you anyway." Before she could respond, the clinic director called out, "Sophia, we need you." She turned back toward her work, leaving him standing there under the morning sun, smaller than he'd ever been. Ethan whispered to himself, "She built something honest from my biggest lie." And as he watched her laugh with the children again, he realized that Sophia didn't just move on. She healed, something he was still learning how to do. 2 weeks after that visit, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the clinic, about the children, the laughter, the colors, but mostly about Sophia. He'd stood in the shadows watching her bring light to others. And for the first time, he didn't want to own anything. He just wanted to deserve something. That night, he called Dr. Harris. "I need your help." Harris sighed. "Please tell me this isn't another test." Ethan smiled faintly. No tests, just truth. 3 months later, the doors of the Cross Rehabilitation Center opened again. Bigger, brighter, fully funded. Sophia was stunned when she walked in one morning to find workers installing new equipment and renovating every wall. The director handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter. "Sophia, I've spent my life building things to impress the world, but the only thing worth building is something that helps it heal. This clinic belongs to you now. No contracts, no conditions. You turned my name into hope, and I want to honor that." Ethan, tears blurred her vision. She rushed outside, and there he was, standing at the gate, dressed simply, no suit, no guards, no ego, just a man who'd finally learned what love was supposed to be. She walked up to him slowly. "You did this?" He nodded. "I didn't know how to make it right. So I thought, maybe, I could start by giving back what you already gave me. Purpose." Sophia's voice shook. "You don't need to buy forgiveness, Ethan." He met her eyes. "I'm not buying anything. I'm giving away everything that made me forget how to feel." The wind rustled through the courtyard. Kids were laughing nearby, painting, playing, alive. Sophia looked at him for a long moment. "You could have disappeared. Why come back?" "Because I finally understood something," he said quietly. "When I pretended to be paralyzed, I was testing your love. But the truth is, I was the one who couldn't walk. Not with my legs, but with my heart. You were the only one trying to help me stand." Her eyes filled again. "Ethan," he smiled sadly, "you don't have to forgive me. Just promise me you'll keep doing what you're doing. Because this," he gestured around them, "this is the best thing my name has ever been attached to." She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You really changed," he nodded. "You taught me how." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world seemed to fade, just the two of them standing in sunlight that felt like mercy. Then Sophia said softly, "You know, forgiveness doesn't mean we forget what happened." He looked down. "I know. It means we stop letting it hurt us." Ethan raised his eyes slowly. "Does that mean you can forgive me?" Sophia took a deep breath, then smiled through her tears. "Yes, but not because you earned it. Because I need to let it go." He exhaled, his heart breaking and healing at the same time. "That's more than I deserve." As they stood there, a small boy rolled up in his wheelchair holding a flower. "Miss Sophia, this fell from the garden," he said shyly, handing it to her. She smiled and turned to Ethan, placing the flower in his hand. "You keep it. For a reminder, he looked at it, a single white lily, pure and fragile, and whispered, "A reminder of what?" Sophia smiled gently. That love doesn't need to be tested. It just needs to be trusted. Later that evening, Ethan watched the sun set over the city. For the first time in years, he didn't feel rich or powerful. He just felt free. He whispered to himself, "I lost everything to find the one thing I never had. Peace." And somewhere behind him, in the golden light of the clinic, Sophia smiled. Moral: true love isn't proven through tests or lies. It's revealed through honesty, patience, and the courage to trust, even when it hurts.